So I'm going to try to give multiple interpretations of these events because I think it's the respectful thing to do. I also want to preface my statement by saying I don't think anyone involved in this situation is a bad person. I don't think that anyone had any bad intentions per se, but more so just that life happens and human relationships are fickle things. They're in many cases futile things, and so they don't always end well, right? It's not something that you can fight. It's not something that you can, work against. It is just a law of nature that comes to pass like anything else. In the same way that what I'm feeling right now will come to pass like anything else. It's difficult right now. It won't be in the future. But I wish her well, and I hope things are able to be a little bit less rocky in the future. But what I want to say more so with this video is I have given up. I am not interested in love anymore. And I think the idea has always been enticing to me. It's been something that I have sought for a long time. But the more times I've been disappointed, the more I have realized that this is just not really for me, right? I don't think the amount of emotional effort I dedicate to these people and the amount that I find myself doing for these people has rewarded me in any way, because in the end, something very silly and strange at best like this happens, or at worst, something really bad happens, like in the case of some of the other relationships I've talked about on this channel. Now, the silliness that I'm sort of gesturing at is the fact that I had been with this girl, my friend, in the wake of my divorce. We were sort of talking a little bit prior to that as well. I had an interest in her, and my interest in her sort of made me feel like actually going through with leaving my wife might be a good idea. That perhaps, this other thing could be better. And I was given so many indications that it would be better and that it wouldn't end in such an anticlimactic way. But I was wrong. To some extent I was deceived. To some extent I simply misread things. I made the mistake of not seeing all of the things as they were. But damn, this is really hard to talk about. I'm trying to be measured in how I respond to this, because I think it's what's respectful. It's what is deserved in this situation. So I'm trying to sort of hold it all together. But needless to say, we had a very passionate kind of fun relationship. We were talking to one another a lot, often about subjects of interest between both of us. There was, not a great deal, but like a good amount. I think a healthy, balanced amount of emotional support therein and respect, which was cool. Things were going pretty well. I had it in my head that things couldn't go wrong, that things were getting better, and something that was already good was getting better, and I was falling more and more in love as time went on, and I had been led to believe that the same was true for her because it's what she had told me several times. And then all of a sudden, today, she hits me with a series of messages claiming that actually she's a lesbian and that she hasn't been able to be attracted to me despite in the past claiming that she has been, and that this is such a confusing and perilous thing for her, as I imagine it would be to some extent, right? Like if you have a romantic attraction to somebody, it stands to reason then that the uh, not being able to have a physical attraction to them could cause some cognitive dissonance, right? Being more attracted to other people could cause some cognitive dissonance, particularly if, what you find to be attractive about them is explicitly their gender characteristics as opposed to mine. So, on one level, that is understandable why that would be a kind of perilous, difficult thing to experience. But on another level, the if you're feeling this way, you were probably already aware of it. like it on no planet would you have a person who, they're jacking off whatever, and in order to climax, they need to look at women or think about women. On no planet is that person not a lesbian, right? Even if there are a couple moments where they have this or that attraction. I mean, that's because humans are bisexual, right? To be a human is to be bisexual to some extent. There are very, very few people who are 100% into women or into men. It seems like most people kind of sit somewhere in the middle, even if they're only 1 or 5 or 10% attracted to that other gender. And so thoughts like that shouldn't exactly be a point for confusion, if at the most basic level you are consistently finding yourself enticed by this other group of people. And that should be pretty easy to figure out. I'm not doing rocket science here. This is just basic self-awareness 101 stuff. This is stuff that you figure out when you were in high school. But of course, I was but another stepping stone in the development of another person, as I often am. And so, I was used as a way of her further understanding herself, right? And in so doing, I did a great amount of emotional support and analysis, and I was there for her many times when she was having issues, and every time she told me how much she appreciated it and how it contributed to her goals, and I'd go, no, that's all you doing that. It's not any big thing, because it wasn't. But then she'd express even more appreciation, and this sort of gave me the sense that we were cool, that there was a big connection there. But of course, what you come to find is when you're helping someone understand themselves who does not understand themselves very well, there could be other fundamental, relatively obvious things that they don't understand that end up getting in the way. Like in this case, it's sexuality, right? She didn't even know what her own sexuality was, despite, with the information that she had, it should be readily apparent, it should be obvious. But some people are not self-aware in that way. I don't want to chalk it up to stupidity or anything like that, just because I think that's a how would I put this? That is a like a character assassination. That's ad hominem. Just also not. It's not really cool to be saying stuff like that in this context. But for whatever reason it was, she didn't have the tools to ascertain what was going on with herself and correctly identify what was going on there. I would imagine the push and pull of emotions, maybe desiring to be bisexual or some ludicrous thing like this, contributed. But that also doesn't make it any less morally wrong what she did. It can be 100% understandable that a person can be confused about themselves even this late into the game. I know it seems very stupid. It's obviously very unself-aware. But as immature as it may be or may seem, it happens, right? At times it happens. And that's a terrible thing. It's also, a thing that happens. And sometimes people get caught up in the crossfire of the, somebody else's self-development or their, them growing as a person or figuring themselves out or whatever. Um, and everything goes to shit. It's part of why I tend to like, going out with people older than me, because they're easier to relate to. It seems like they have more things about themselves figured out. At least that's what I thought. But, coming out of a relationship with this person, someone who's like almost 30 years old, and the thing that ended it was that they didn't understand something as basic as their own sexuality, uh, kind of gives me an indication that maybe this age thing is not everything. Like, maybe you just need to be with someone who's on the same level as you, intellectually and maturity wise. Of course, I had incorrectly assumed that she and I were on the same level, which was part of how I was able to love her, right? I thought we could match one another. But if you're making rookie mistakes like this, you cannot match me, you know? Um, and in a way, I'm glad that I figured out this now and that things ended now, because if this were to go on for longer and we were to get even more entangled with one another, then I would have ended up, significantly more disturbed over this occurrence than I am right now. It would have been a lot harder to separate, but I dodged a bullet. I am not about being with unself-aware, kind of non-introspective people. People who are willing to just drop some adolescent bullshit on their partner that they've claimed to be dedicated to, and claimed that they're not going to leave, and claimed that they want to be with for a long time, and all this other, nonsense that I was led to believe, that I was led on to believe. And then, they make some self-discovery from a literal dream that they had. I don't remember if I mentioned that or not, but they had a fucking dream that led them to that makes this even more funny, to be honest. It's just like, it's like I'm over here talking about how I'm improving myself and how I'm working every day on my goals, and then she just hits me with the Valley Girl voice about how in a dream she became a lesbian. It's like, this is actually retarded. I'm sorry, I can't hold it back. I can't. It's, yeah, of course I'm gonna judge this, because this is literally the easiest thing to judge, right? It's I can't do it, right? I cannot fuck with people like that. These kind of like low vibration, fucking low aura type people. I can't do it. And so, it is what it is. These things happen, right? Some people are so enmeshed in their own personal traumas and thoughts that they can't think critically about them. Well, they can, but they're refusing to do so. And when I criticized her, decisions up to this point in my messages, and I told her that, it kind of would have been nice to know this earlier on before developing a serious, committed relationship with you. And she took that to mean, I was being mean to her, when no, I was just criticizing her approach and expressing respectfully that I was hurt. And then she chooses to respond to that by claiming that I'm not only being mean, but that I'm being objectively mean by simply pointing out flaws that she has. When no, it's like that is a normal part of human interaction. Somebody is going to point out a flaw that you have at some point. And if something that you've done has hurt them in some way, then they're going to point that out as well. And she was incapable of accepting that as a kind of social reality, right? But instead as a flaw of my own, the fact that I would communicate in that manner, which only cemented this sense in my mind that she is not mature. Like, she is not with it in any sense of the word, of the phrase. But that's what happens sometimes, right? Sometimes you get entangled with people that are simply not ready to be in relationships. Because if your first response to some minor, politely worded criticism, but blunt and honest nonetheless, is "you're being mean to me and this is objectively mean and you should stop," then, like, I'm sorry, but I can't do anything for you. And nobody can do anything for you for that matter. Only when you fundamentally change your approach to be more empathetic of other people's feelings and of the things that they have to say, then you can, start to be able to be in a good relationship, in a healthy relationship. Ours had been healthy up to this point, but then when challenged with a thing like this, I come to see, the real colors coming out, some of the true stripes. And something that I think is important to remember is that in the context of a relationship, a person is not who they are most of the time, right? They are who they appear to be in the worst, most testing moments of their life. If I were to respond to everything she said to me with insults, with threats, with, I don't even know, with, what's a really bad thing you could do? With some kind of manipulation, this sort of thing, then my true colors would have come out. But what I chose to do was respond to her, was to make clear how I felt. And the act of doing this was met with rejection. And that should tell me everything I need to know about this person that I had loved, that I had thought was put together and well-rounded. And sometimes, those revelations come. Being in an emotionally difficult situation is not an excuse. It is never an excuse to be cruel to someone else, right? You can be brutally honest, but that's not cruel. That's the opposite of cruel. That's actually being kind to somebody. I think people need bluntness. People need to hear the truth and nothing but the truth exactly how it is. Because if you don't do that, if you deliberately conceal things, if you make an active attempt to portray a version of reality that's not the case, you are only going to hurt that person in the end. That is the primary impact you will have had on that person's life. And in this case, that's the impact she had on me. Because in an attempt possibly to avoid hurting me by bringing up these concerns earlier on, she has in fact hurt me far more by concealing the truth. And, it sucks, but it happens. This kind of betrayal, it's a product of people not being fully developed, not being able to clearly state their needs, not feeling comfortable in their own skin, so they seek others for affirmation and approval. And they don't really have what it takes to have a real, respectful, adult relationship. I'm talking about a mature relationship. Because in a relationship like that, number one, you don't wind up with someone who's from a sex that you are literally not attracted to. That's the first thing. But if you do, you're upfront about it right from the beginning. And that gets to number two, is that you're honest, open, and clear. There were plenty of times when I had to sort of nudge at her to get the truth because I could notice something in her tone of voice or in her face, like how she looked, that like I wasn't being told everything in that moment. Like there was something kind of being left out. And so I'd kind of ask like, yo, you sure like everything's good? Like you seem like a little off. And then she'd tell me like, oh, actually, like there's this, and like I shouldn't have to do that, like you should be able to just tell me, it shouldn't be this weird, communication thing where you're having to dance around the point. It's like, just give me the fucking point, Anything else is doing a disservice to the people around you. Anything else is fucking over the people around you. I firmly believe that. That is my philosophy on life, morally, what have you. And so, I can't mess with someone who doesn't slide like that, who's not about it. Because we're just going to be too incompatible, too different. But I'm trying to remember if there's anything else I wanted to say. Because this is an important video, so I want to try to get all the context in. Didn't write any notes or anything like that. Oh yeah, the premise of this video, the thing that I actually started the video out by gesturing at. I have given up on love, at least for now. I think, you don't want to make grandiose, big statements like this, but, at least for now, I've given up. I don't want to go through this again, especially not when, I have so many cool, productive things that I'm doing. It seems like having a relationship would just take up my time and make it to where I'm dedicating less of my time to those things. Any of the money that, I could spend on being with her, doing things with her, I can put towards more education, more schooling, all these different things. Even just more language books to do self-study. It's not as if, it's not as if women don't come with expenses, right? It's like the first thing that being in a relationship comes with oftentimes. Because even just, travel expenses to get from point A to point B costs money. And so it's not fun, it's not great. But I would have liked to continue being friends with her, but I simply can't after this. It's like I'm not going to be able to fuck with somebody who reassured me in the most direct way that they possibly could that everything's good between us, that we're never going to have to worry about this, that I'm about it. Yeah, something, might change in the future, but nothing, wild. That's sort of what I was led to believe, but you drop something like this on a person, it's like a nuclear bomb. I was never even attracted to you from the beginning because of your sex. It's like, well, hold up. You mean to tell me that you never even had that interest in anybody? And she's like, yeah. It was like, huh? That would have been a good thing to know right from the beginning, right? And so if you lead somebody on that long and get them, into this situation where they're feeling all these things about you, making all these plans with you, and then you just drop something like that and then are like, oh yeah, actually we're done. Hell yeah, I'm going to be mad. You think I'm going to talk to you again? Hell no, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. And so it's like, I would have loved for it to just be a regular problem, for it to be oh, I'm just not really feeling it anymore. The feelings, they fade, and I'm ready to move on to something else. And you can say one or two things. You can be like, hey, or you sure you don't want to try to work on it? Make things a little bit more simpatico. But, you can say that once or twice, and then if they're like, nah, I'm not about that, I don't want to give that a shot. All you say is, I respect where you're coming from. This is this is really hard for me, but, I get it. I hope everything's good for you, and maybe you have a little break from each other, but you stay friends. In a normal situation, that's what you do. But if you straight up fucking concealing major facts about yourself and then lead somebody to feel all these things about you, passionately so, then you did a bad thing. You just did a bad thing. You did a thing which has led to the betrayal of that other person. And I'm not about that. I can't be friends with someone who does that. And so, really I see it it's her loss, and I see it I did that Matrix thing where I dodged the bullet. I dodged the bullet so far. But yeah, beyond that, I just want to keep working on myself. I want to keep doing my language study as I've been every day. I know I'm going to do that more later today as well. And yeah, I mean, as I said, right, and this is to all the people in the audience who have recently gone through a breakup, or, you know, they think they might be at the onset of one. It's going to be fine, right? This too shall pass. The steady march of time heals all wounds. And as long as you have interests or passions of some kind, you know, try to immerse yourself in that. Take it day by day. Just do what you got to do, and it'll be fine. But you know, what can I say? Sometimes life hits you, but in a couple years from now, I think I am going to be in such an impressive place in my life that all of you are going to be very proud of me. And I can do that with or without her. With or without anybody, to be frank. It all comes internally. You just got to lock in. You just got to keep it together.